"You greedy bastards," I muttered under my breath. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Hidden outside my father's study, I listened in shocked disgust as my mother and brother casually discussed how they would benefit financially from my dad's impending death. "With Marshall gone, we'll finally get our hands on the inheritance," my brother Declan said. "His business is worth millions, but we need to act fast before his conditional will locks us out." "I've waited decades for that old fool to die," my mother Evelyn snapped. "We deserve that money more than anyone." I felt sick with rage. My father had devoted his entire life to building his craft brewery company. He had started from nothing, working tirelessly while selflessly giving back to our community. And now, as he lay terminally ill with lung cancer, his own family schemed to seize his hard-earned legacy. I burst into the study, unable to restrain myself. "You should both be ashamed," I bellowed. "Dad is fighting for his life, and all you care about is money?" Evelyn gasped theatrically. "Ryder, what are you doing, eavesdropping on us?" I ignored her attempt to flip the script. "I heard enough. You plan to manipulate Dad's will and steal his company for your own gain." Declan snickered. "Half-brother, you're too soft for your own good. Stay out of this if you know what's best for you." My hands curled into fists. I had to take a slow breath to contain my fury. We may only share one parent between us, but Declan and I grew up as brothers. This betrayal cut deep. Evelyn chimed in with her usual manipulation. "Sweetheart, we only want what's fair for our family." I cut her off sharply. "Fair? You insult Dad on his deathbed after everything he's done for you." I shook my head in disgust. In that moment, I knew where my loyalties lay. "I'll be visiting Dad in the hospital now," I said coldly. "Do what you want. I'll protect his legacy at all costs." I turned and strode out, determined to put as much distance between myself and those deceitful snakes. My mind raced as I jumped into my old pickup truck. I refused to let them steal everything my father worked for, but I was just one man against their machinations. As I drove to the hospital where Dad lay clinging to life, one thing became crystalline clear. This brewing war between us would only end once justice had been served. My so-called family pinned their greed above all else, but they didn't yet realize one thing. Never underestimate my devotion to the man who raised me. I aimed to honor my father, no matter the cost. The pungent smell of antiseptic filled my nose as I walked through the bustling hospital corridors. The sterile environment only amplified the gravity of why I was here, to see my dad, Marshall, as he endured the final agonizing stages of lung cancer. I stepped into his room, and the sight of his gaunt, weakened frame pierced my heart. Yet when he saw me, his face still lit up. "Ryder, my boy, so good of you to visit your old man," he rasped, his voice barely a whisper. I grasped his bony hand, holding back tears. "Hey, Dad," I said, managing a sad smile. "How are you feeling today?" He dismissed my question with a wave. "Ah, still kicking, but enough about me. Tell me what's new with you." Even now, he thought of everyone but himself. I swallowed hard. "I got a new contract to design some beer labels for a client in Austin. Should be a fun campaign." "Glad to hear the graphic design business is booming." Dad's smile radiated pride. "You've done so well for yourself, son. I always knew you were destined for great things." I felt a pang in my chest, recalling his unwavering support when I decided to leave college and chart my own path as an entrepreneur. He never stopped believing in me, which made what I had overheard earlier even more difficult. As if reading my thoughts, Dad squeezed my hand. "Ryder, promise me something. No matter what happens, stay true to yourself. Don't let money or other people change who you are." My throat tightened with emotion. After a pause, I met his earnest gaze. "Of course, Dad, I promise." He nodded, seeming to relax back into his pillow. Just then, the door swung open, admitting my mother and Declan. I stiffened. "Oh, Marshall, we've been so worried." Evelyn gushed dramatically, embracing Dad. Behind her fake smile, I sensed cold calculation. Declan hung back, feigning concern. "We came as soon as we heard the news. How bad is it?" I gritted my teeth. "Did they have no shame?" Dad patted Evelyn's hand. "It's terminal, I'm afraid, but I've made my peace with it." His eyes flashed defiantly. "My affairs are all in order." Declan and Evelyn exchanged a subtle, frustrated look. My hands curled into fists. They were like vultures, impatiently waiting to pick my father's bones clean. I stood abruptly. "I should get going. Feel better, Dad." As I left, I paused beside Declan. Through clenched teeth, I muttered, This isn't over. I meant what I said. He smirked. Still clinging to those foolish principles, brother? When will you open your eyes and seize the opportunity before you? My blood boiled at his sneering words. Without replying, I stormed out before I did something I'd regret. Driving home, Dad's earnest words echoed in my mind. No matter how hard Evelyn and Declan tried to destroy his legacy, I refused to compromise who I was. Dad built his brewery empire from the ground up, with unfailing integrity. Now it was up to me to safeguard everything he worked for from those deceitful jackals. Failure was not an option. I owed that much to the man I loved as a father. Resolve stealing within me, I drove onward through the gathering dusk. The fight for my dad's legacy had only just begun. I strode through the hospital's sliding doors, a bouquet of daisies in hand, Dad's favorite. The nurses at the front desk waved in somber recognition. After so many visits these past few agonizing weeks, I knew this place like a second home now. "How is he today?" I asked Helen, an older nurse who cared for Dad daily. She smiled gently. "He pushed through the night, but he's fading fast. Spend all the time you can with him." I nodded, throat tightening. "Thank you, for everything." She squeezed my arm in quiet empathy before I continued down the hall. Step by step, I steeled myself for what I knew would be one of the last times I'd speak to my father. I paused outside his room, taking a deep breath. When I entered, the sight of him knocked the wind out of me. His shrunken frame barely made a contour under the stark white sheets. His breathing sounded painfully labored. Machines beeped and whirred, temporary guardians against the inevitable. Dad slowly turned to me, his eyes lighting up when they met mine. "Ryder," he rasped, raising a trembling hand. I rushed forward, grasping it firmly as I sat beside him. "Hey, Dad," I said gently. "I brought you something." I raised the daisies, conjuring a faint smile to my lips. He inhaled their sweet scent. "My favorite. You always had a knack for knowing just what I needed." I squeezed his hand, unable to speak past the emotion clogging my throat. We sat in poignant silence for several moments. Despite the whirs and beeps punctuating the air, an aura of profound peace surrounded us. All that mattered was simply being present, side by side. After a while, Dad met my gaze. "Ryder, promise me you'll look after the brewery. My employees depend on it." I nodded firmly. "Of course. I swear I'll protect your legacy, Dad." He studied me with sudden intensity. "No matter who tries to wrest it from you, stand resolute. Blood means far less than integrity and grit." I swallowed hard. So he did know of Evelyn and Declan's vile schemes. "I understand," I said quietly. "And I meant what I said. I won't let them win." Dad relaxed back with a look of satisfaction. We lapsed into easy conversation about happier memories over the years. For a beautiful, bittersweet interval, we indulged in nostalgia, smiles and laughter punctuating the poignant mood. Too soon, Dad grew drained. His replies came slower, his eyes heavier. I gave his hand one last squeeze and stood. "Get some rest. I'll come back tomorrow." I bent and gently kissed his cool, pale forehead. He gave a faint nod, already fading off. My heart splintered, knowing our remaining time together was now mercilessly short. I left the hospital in a gloomy daze. Getting into my truck, I glanced up and froze. Parked nearby sat a sleek black Mercedes I knew all too well. Evelyn and Declan emerged from the hospital doors, walking with brusque purpose. Evelyn fussed with her ostentatious jewelry while Declan talked urgently. Though I couldn't hear their conversation, their expressions said everything. Like vultures still greedily circling, desperate to pick the bones clean the moment their chance arrived. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as I observed their schemes continuing literally over Dad's deathbed. Resolve coursed through me, stealing my spine. Come what may, those deceitful snakes would not claim my father's life work. I swore that solemn oath on his very name, a name that, unlike them, actually meant something. I sat hunched over my drawing table, blearily sketching label concepts as I tried tuning out the world. Losing myself in work was the only respite from the relentless dread from Dad's prognosis that haunted me. As I reached for my coffee mug, voices sounded from the hallway. I paused, recognizing Evelyn and Declan's shrill tones drifting from Dad's study nearby. Curiosity piercing through my gloom, I quietly crept toward their half-open door, keeping hidden. "The revised will is almost ready," Declan said. "My guy assured me the substituted documents will hold up fine in probate." Evelyn scoffed. It better. We already greased that lawyer's palm enough. I bristled with outrage. So that's why Declan's fancy Mercedes had sat parked outside some high-rise law office building when I'd spotted it downtown recently. They were circumventing Dad's true last wishes by tampering with his will. With Marshall on his deathbed, the timing's perfect to file these, Declan continued. By the time anyone contests, we'll have the inheritance and brewery secured. And you're certain Marshall left you and Ryder equal shares? Evelyn asked sharply. We can't risk that stubborn fool blocking us like always. Declan snorted. Please, Ryder's an idealistic pushover, blinded by sentiment. He'll be easily manipulated once the old man's gone. Red-hot fury surged through me. Jaw clenched, I stormed into the study. How dare you? I thundered. Evelyn and Declan spun toward me, eyes wide. Evelyn recovered first. Ryder, what nonsense are you shouting about now? She tittered nervously. I jabbed an accusing finger. I heard everything. You two make me sick, I vowed through gritted teeth. I'll die before I let you steal Dad's legacy, Declan sneered. Bold words, little brother, but you're no match for us. He snatched the forged documents off the desk and brushed past me, Evelyn following hastily. At the doorway, they paused. Evelyn's smile held wicked triumph. Don't worry, darling. We'll take good care of the inheritance. Their mocking laughter trailed behind them as they departed. I stood trembling, overwhelmed by fury and frustration. Dad still clung to life while these ghouls eagerly awaited his demise to plunder what he held most dear. I couldn't let them win, but I was just one man. If I confronted them directly, things could get ugly fast. I'd need help to defeat their schemes. Grabbing my truck keys, I strode outside towards downtown, my stampeding thoughts bent on only one goal: finding a ruthless attorney to aid my cause before Declan and Evelyn filed those forged documents. One way or another, I refused to let my father's life's work, his most precious legacy meant to benefit so many, get devoured by those deceitful monsters. The brewery's rightful future now rested on my shoulders alone. I just prayed I could endure the brutal fight ahead. I sat at Dad's bedside, gloom settled on my shoulders like a leaden weight. His health spiraled rapidly now, his lucid moments growing shorter, but today he seemed strangely at peace. His eyes shone clear and bright as he studied me. You seem troubled, son, he finally rasped. What's on your mind? I debated deflecting, not wanting to stress him further, but something in his steady, knowing gaze gave me pause. Dad always had a sage way of reading people. I sighed heavily. It's Evelyn and Declan. They plan to contest your will and steal the brewery once you're gone. I overheard them scheming. Bitterness tainted my admission. Dad showed no surprise, merely nodding. Declan made contact with some shady attorney downtown. They'll likely file forged documents after the funeral to override your true wishes, I continued. I'm trying to stop them, but my helpless frustration choked off further words. Dad lay a comforting hand on my arm. Ryder, you underestimate your old man. I've safeguarded my legacy better than you realize. Amusement glinted in his tired eyes. As for Declan's attorney, he's actually on retainer in my service, has been for years. I gaped, confusion swirling through my gloom. Dad went on. The papers Declan paid him to draft are clever forgeries, good enough to dupe those two vultures once I'm gone. His mouth quirked with quiet triumph, but ultimately powerless. Stunned understanding dawned on me. Dad had cunningly orchestrated a trap, one scheduled to spring shut right on Declan and Evelyn's heels when they inevitably raced to plunder his fortune. So you outmaneuvered them, just like that? I stammered. Dad chuckled softly. Son, when you've built an empire like I have, you learn a few things, and keeping friends close while keeping potential enemies closer is one rule I've never forgotten. His smile held profound satisfaction. Declan and Evelyn's greed blinded them to the long game I've had in play this whole time. My true plans are safely encoded where they'll never access them. I slowly shook my head in awe. Even now, Dad remained 3 steps ahead. He clasped my hand tightly. Ryder, you and I know what truly matters in this life, and it sure as hell isn't money. Resolve stealing his voice, he continued. Swear to me now that you'll use your inheritance only for good. To lift others up, the brewery can transform so many lives. I firmly gripped his fragile hand between mine. I swear it, Dad, on my life. He studied me intently for a long moment before relaxing back, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. The cunning strategist who built an empire from nothing had secured his final victory, outfoxing the opportunists who sought to tear it all down. Leaving later as the winter sun sank low, I felt Dad's steady hand still grasping mine, our solemn pact resonating with destiny's pull. The brewery's future now rested solely in my guardianship. But somehow I didn't feel alone. Dad's spirit would remain beside me, guiding my next moves, and when the time inevitably came, his master strategy would deliver justice once and for all. Of that, I became powerfully certain. The long game was still in ruthless play. I tugged at my tie, the black fabric suddenly feeling like a noose cinched around my throat. Dad's attorney, Mr. Silver, had gathered Evelyn, Declan, and I here, a week after the funeral, to execute Dad's will. I hadn't spoken to either of them since the solemn service. As far as they knew, the revised documents Declan provided were now legal and binding. The brewery would soon be theirs, if only they knew what was coming. Almost against my will, I felt a swell of dark anticipation. Right on time, Evelyn and Declan swept in, their tailored mourning clothes unable to disguise their rapacious confidence. Clearly, they both expected this would be a quick, clean coup. They pointedly ignored me as we all sat. Mr. Silver cleared his throat. "We're here to discuss Marshall's last will and testament." Withdrawing a sealed manila envelope, he slid on his glasses. "Let's proceed." Evelyn shifted forward eagerly in her seat, while Declan lounged back, oozing a casual smugness that nearly made me lunge across the table at him. I focused on keeping my composure. "To my beloved wife, Evelyn," Mr. Silver read aloud, "I leave sole ownership of our 20-acre Aspen vacation property and a lump sum allowance of $500,000 to sustain your lifestyle indefinitely." Evelyn blinked rapidly, blindsided. Her entitlement had clearly expected the entire brewery empire, not some backup retirement package. Declan shot her an irritated glare, as if this was somehow her fault. Meanwhile, a fierce swell of satisfaction rose in my chest. I could practically envision Dad's smug grin right now at his ultimate checkmate. Clearing his throat again, Mr. Silver proceeded to the next section, addressing Declan. "To my son Declan, I leave a lump sum of $300,000. Declan jolted forward in disbelief. "What? That's all?" He seized the documents, frantically scanning the terms. Mr. Silver gave him a long look over his glasses. "As specified in your father's will, that inheritance comes with stipulations. You will receive it incrementally over the next 5 years, provided you maintain verified employment and refrain from engaging in further illegal activities, which we will be monitoring closely." Declan's face purpled, clashing horribly with his crimson hair. He spluttered incoherently, years of entitled expectations crashing down on him all at once. Somewhere I was certain Dad watched with deep satisfaction. I almost felt pity for Declan. Almost. But after everything he and Evelyn put our family through, his misery seemed only just punishment. Finally, Mr. Silver turned his attention to me. Holding my gaze, he announced, "Ryder, to you Marshall leaves full ownership of the brewery." "No," Evelyn shrieked, shooting to her feet. "That company belongs to me." In that moment, her polished veneer evaporated, exposing her for the desperate, greedy opportunist she was. Declan only stared hollowly into space, the reality of his severed silver spoon smothering any reaction. I weathered their outbursts calmly, letting a small, satisfied smile tug at my lips. In his final act, Dad utterly outmaneuvered them all. Justice came for those who poisoned our family with greed. And now the company Dad built from the ground up was protected, its future preserved to keep his spirit alive. "The handcuffs you slipped years ago finally locked tight today around your greedy hands," I muttered. "Rest in that uneasy peace." As Declan and Evelyn unleashed their impotent fury within the trap Marshall built years ago, I simply sat back, savoring my father's last perfect victory. In the weeks following the explosive will reading, I threw myself into learning the brewery business. As Dad's hand-picked successor, I needed to understand every aspect of the company now under my stewardship. I toured the grounds, talking with employees and learning their roles hands-on. The seasoned workers taught me the intricate brewing process, from selecting premium ingredients right down to bottling and distribution. As I reviewed accounting records, the picture came into clear focus. Dad built this empire from the ground up, showing me the deeper meaning behind his years of endless work. The company meant far more than profit margins to him. It meant community. Jobs for hundreds, partnerships with local farms, families sustained for generations. The brewery wove lives together in a way I never fully appreciated until now. Late one evening, as I finalized a new hire's papers, loud shouts rang out from the parking lot. I rushed outside to investigate. My gut tightened at what I saw. Evelyn and Declan stood screaming at Tom, Dad's loyal head brewer of 20 years. In the shadows lurked several suited men with hard expressions. Evelyn's usually polished blonde hair hung in frazzled strands as she jabbed a finger at Tom. "You have no right to block us," she shrilled. "Marshall promised us control." Tom stood firm, arms crossed. "This is Mr. Ryder's brewery now, as Mr. Marshall wanted. I aim to uphold his wishes." Declan grabbed Tom's shirt, wrenching the older man close. "Tell us the access codes to the system mainframe now," he growled, "or my associates will convince you the hard way." The suited men cracked their knuckles, malice glinting in their eyes. Tom paled but lifted his chin. "I won't betray Mr. Marshall's son. Do your worst." Rage exploded within me. I stalked forward, muscles coiled tight. "Let him go!" My shout echoed sharply. Everyone froze. Evelyn recovered first, her smile dripping false sweetness. "Ryder, darling, we were just having a chat with Tom here." I cut through her facade with a blistering glare. "Get off my property, now." Declan released Tom hastily as they scrambled to their car. Pausing, Evelyn hissed at me, "You'll pay for this," before peeling out down the road. I watched them go, chest heaving. So now they resorted to threats and violence, revealing desperation to reclaim what they considered their lost inheritance. Well, that was never happening. I turned to Tom, who gave me a grateful nod. In that small gesture, I recognized the deeper bond of trust Dad and Tom shared now flowing to me. As we walked back inside, steely purpose took root within me. Evelyn and Declan wanted war? Fine. For the brewery, for Dad, and for Tom, I would give them absolute hell. No more playing nice. That time ended when they laid hands on my people and tried dismantling Dad's legacy. If those snakes wanted a fight, I would rain fire on their ambitions until only ashes remained. My father's company now lived through me, and I protected what was mine. I signed the last document with a satisfied flourish before leaning back in my leather office chair. It had taken months of legal battles, but Evelyn and Declan's desperate attempts to seize Dad's company had finally failed. They put up a vicious fight at first, using every ruthless tactic imaginable to undermine me. Bribery, threats, lawsuits. But I refused to cave. Armed with Dad's ironclad will and evidence gathered against them over the years, I systematically demolished their campaign. The look on their faces when the judge dismissed their case with prejudice almost made all the headaches worthwhile. It was a crushing defeat, both legally and financially. Pursuing payments for their bloated legal fees bankrupted their extravagant lifestyles. Evelyn had to sell off her gaudy jewelry just to afford her clutching lawyers. Last I heard, she moved into some budget retirement village downstate, her fall from fortune now complete. As for Declan, criminal charges soon caught up with him for past shady dealings, finally severing his privileged safety net for good. He deserved worse, but knowing he languished in prison was consolation enough. Their poisonous presence finally vanished from my life, and more importantly from Dad's company. Still, caution lingered. Tom upgraded security measures and instituted new protocols to prevent any remaining insider threats. After avoiding catastrophe by a hair, no chances could be taken with protecting the brewery's future. With operations now safe, I focused energy into the workforce. Employees received expanded healthcare coverage and retirement matching. New family-friendly policies made the workplace more accessible. Dad built this company to sustain lives. Now more than ever, with Evelyn and Declan's toxicity gone, his vision deserved nurturing. Gazing around my office, memories swelled within me. The antique oak furniture, leather-bound books, and Mustang car models transporting me back to eager days as a boy, sitting at Dad's feet listening with wonder as he strategized ambitious plans for growth, back when we shared joy and possibility instead of pain and betrayal. Now at last I understood why he stood guard over this empire so protectively. It represented the best of his spirit and life's passion. Not just wood, brick, and steel buildings, housing stainless steel vats and bottling machinery, but the culmination of community and purpose he willed into existence from imaginings of a better future for all. A quiet knock interrupted my reminiscing. I glanced up as Tom stepped in. "The scholarship fund paperwork is ready for your review," he said. "Once you approve, we can announce it at the annual gala next month." I smiled broadly. Using a large portion of my inheritance, I established a memorial scholarship in Dad's name to fund the brewery education and training costs for underprivileged youth. By empowering eager minds from challenging backgrounds, the fund ensured Dad's legacy continued transforming lives for generations to come. "Sounds perfect," I said, scrawling my signature across the documents. "Let's make the announcement." Tom's eyes shone bright. As we left the office to oversee the bottling line, I sensed Dad walking beside us, grinning wide at what his life's work had grown into. The company remained now exactly as he envisioned, a force elevating our community through integrity and vision. By safeguarding its future from those who tried claiming it for greed's sake, the brewery and Dad's ideals would continue changing lives. His spirit thrived in every bottle produced, reminding me what truly matters. Not wealth or assets, but people and potential. Thank you, Dad, for showing me what legacy means. Yours will never be forgotten.